My name is Sister Helena. For over 40 years, I lived behind stone walls under vows of silence, prayer, and obedience. To the world outside, my life may have seemed distant, serene, untouched by noise or temptation. And in many ways, it was. I gave up everything: family, career, dreams for a life hidden with Christ. But let me tell you something most don't expect. Even within sacred walls, a soul can grow weary. Even in a place built for worship, one can forget how to listen. I entered the convent of St. Agnes when I was just 22. I remember the morning clearly. My father wept. My mother held my hand so tightly, as if hoping I'd change my mind. But I didn't. I was filled with conviction, breathless with purpose. The world outside seemed broken, loud, hungry for everything that faded. I wanted what endured. I longed to belong wholly to Jesus. In those early years, my soul burned with joy. Every psalm I chanted felt like a love letter. Every sunrise in the garden seemed to whisper his name. I would often wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, certain I had felt the presence of angels while I slept. My prayers were alive, and my tears were offerings. I had found the secret place, and I dwelled in it gladly. But what no one tells you is that fire, if not fed, slowly fades. Not with violence, but with subtlety. My devotion became routine. The rhythm of convent life: matins, lauds, prime, tierce, sext, none, vespers. Compline became a clock I followed, not a river I flowed in. I knew the words. I lived the structure. But something inside me had grown quiet, not with peace, but with absence. There were mornings I knelt in the chapel and prayed with my lips while my heart wandered far. I looked at the crucifix and felt nothing, and that frightened me more than any temptation ever had. I didn't dare speak of it not to the other sisters, and certainly not to Mother Superior. What would I say? That after decades of sacred living, I wasn't sure I felt him anymore? That I feared I had become a servant of routine rather than a lover of the divine? Still, I smiled. I taught the younger sisters. I read scripture aloud to the village children. I sang the hymns and folded linens with care. But inside, I asked questions I never voiced. Lord, do I know you, or have I only memorized you? One cold March morning, as I walked alone into the chapel to prepare for lauds, I felt an odd weight in my chest. At first, I thought it was the chill. I had just lit the last candle on the altar. The wax hissed as the flame caught, and then suddenly I couldn't breathe. It felt like something invisible pressing down hard, like a great unseen hand squeezing my heart. My vision blurred. I stumbled forward and fell. I heard my name, faintly, as if underwater. Sister Helena? Then nothing. No sound, no pain, no fear. Just stillness. I opened my eyes, expecting to see the infirmary ceiling. But what I saw instead stole my breath more completely than death ever could. I was no longer in the chapel. I stood in a space without shadow or time. It shimmered with a light so alive, so impossibly full, it made my heart tremble. It wasn't sunlight. It wasn't made of fire. It was something else, something holy. The air carried music, not made by instruments, but by being itself. It vibrated with praise, with adoration so pure I could feel it wrap around me like warmth. The walls, if you could call them, that were not made of stone or glass, but of light. Every color imaginable glowed and pulsed with the presence of love. It was like standing in the breath of heaven. And then, without sound, a voice filled me. Helena. It didn't enter my ears. It entered my soul. I fell to my knees not out of fear, but because my spirit recognized something older than time itself. Reverence. Holiness. The voice that speaks stars into being had spoken my name. You have served my house, the voice said, but did you truly seek my face? I wanted to cry out, yes, of course, yes, but my mouth wouldn't open. Not because I was forbidden, but because I was known. Known in a way that made every mask fall, every excuse melt. I had been faithful, yes. I had been obedient, yes, but I had stopped seeking. I had become a caretaker of the holy, not a friend of the Holy One. I wept, not with guilt, with clarity. And then I saw him, not in a vision, not as an image or a whisper. Jesus. He stood before me, clothed in light so radiant I felt it pass through me like wind through wheat. His eyes, there are no words. Galaxies could hide in them. They held justice and mercy, laughter and sorrow, eternity and intimacy. He looked at Menno through me, at Meand in that gaze. I remembered who I was before I became Sister Helena. I was a daughter. I was a soul. I was loved. He reached out his hand toward me. Come, he said. There is more I want to show you. And in that moment, I understood. I had not reached the end. I had just found the beginning. If this story touched your heart, we invite you to join our community, a space of faith, reflection, and awakening. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can keep sharing these messages of light and love. And we'd love to hear from you. Comment your name and your city below so we can greet you with joy in our next video. You are not alone. You're part of something beautiful. The moment his hand touched mine, everything changed. I didn't feel transported. I didn't float. I didn't fly. It was more like the world peeled away. Not violently, but like mist lifting to reveal what had always been there, just unseen. I held the hand of Jesus, and with that simple contact, I was taken beyond the veil. We walked not on ground, not through sky, but through light itself. It pulsed beneath our feet, alive and responsive, as though creation itself welcomed every step he took. The place around us was shifting, expanding with a kind of holy breath. It felt like walking through eternity dressed as awe. There was no fear, only a weightless peace that settled in my soul like warm oil. Yet even in that perfect peace, there was a sobering intensity. Every part of me was known, my thoughts, my memories, my prayers, my silence. It was impossible to hide, but what stunned me most wasn't the exposure, it was the kindness that met it. As we moved through that cathedral of glory, Jesus didn't speak. He simply held my hand, but I could feel him, feel his thoughts, like waves of love and truth washing over my heart. With him, silence wasn't absence. It was fullness. Complete understanding passed between us without a word. My life lay before him, but instead of shame, I felt release. My regrets surfaced not to accuse me, but to be washed away. The first vision came gently, like a curtain being drawn back. We stood at the edge of what I can only describe as a heavenly city, though it looked nothing like a city built by human hands. There were no buildings, no roads, no fences. Only towers of song and light, each one vibrating with praise so powerful it could move your spirit to tears. The air itself shimmered with worship, not performance, but surrender. Angels moved in perfect unity, not with wings flapping in spectacle, but with purpose, with mission, like flames wrapped in grace. Their movements carried sound, and their sound created form. This was not imagination. This was the core of reality, what all beauty on earth only dares to echo. And then I saw the throne. Not a golden chair, not a dais, but something far beyond, form like a storm of fire and purity, light and gravity. It drew everything toward it without effort. I fell to my knees before I could think. My whole being wanted to bow, not out of fear, but because standing felt wrong in the presence of such majesty. I could not look long. My body, though, no longer physical, trembled under the weight of that glory. It wasn't a throne of judgment, but of truth. And truth, in its purest form, is overwhelming. Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder and gently turned me away. I knew I had seen what few have, and only by his grace. Then we shifted again. Suddenly, we were somewhere else, neither heaven nor earth, but something in between. The atmosphere changed. It grew heavier, sadder. There was no music here, no light towers. Only a dim stillness filled with longing. I could feel it in my spirit, a sorrow so deep it could not be spoken. "This is where many souls wait," Jesus said softly. "Not in torment, but in mercy." I looked around and saw people, real souls. Some stood, some knelt, some wept silently. They were not screaming. They were remembering. They were seeing their lives as they truly were. Every missed opportunity, every ignored whisper of the Spirit, every time they turned away, not with hatred, but with indifference. I felt no condemnation from Jesus, only sorrow. These were not the condemned. These were the ones still being reached. He showed me how some had never truly known his name, yet their hearts had cried out for truth all their lives. Others had worn the mask of religion, going through sacred motions, but never giving him their hearts. And still, he reached for them. I wept, because I saw myself in them, the slow drift, the hollow service, the fear of saying I don't feel you anymore. And yet, here they were, being given what I had been given. Mercy, understanding, one more chance to choose love over ritual. Then, the final place. The light dimmed further. The air chilled not in temperature but in presence. It felt hollow, as if something vital had been removed. Jesus did not let go of my hand, but his grip tightened slightly. This place was different. The absence of God was palpable. And yet it wasn't fire or torture like the stories. It was simply absence. Soul without light. I saw people wandering, not tormented by flames, but by regret, by echoes of the choices they made. They repeated phrases like whispers in the dark. I thought there'd be time. I didn't believe he was real. I never knew. My heart broke. I wanted to reach them, to scream, "He is real! There's still time! Call out to him!" But I understood I was not sent here to save them. I was sent to remember. Jesus looked at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. "I died for them too," he said. "But love cannot force itself. Every soul must choose." Suddenly, everything shifted again. The veil closed. We stood once more in the Cathedral of Light, and Jesus turned to me. His eyes, burning and tender, met mine. "Helena," he said, "you have known discipline. Now you have known truth. It is not enough to serve me with your hands. I desire your heart, and I desire that you speak." I opened my mouth to reply, but the words dissolved in tears. I could only whisper, "I'm not worthy." And he replied, "I do not call the worthy, I call the willing, and I make them holy." With a single touch on my forehead, I was pulled like breath, returning to lungs backward through light, through memory, through pain, until my eyes opened once again in the convent infirmary. But something inside me had stayed behind. Or perhaps something from there had come back with me. When I opened my eyes in the infirmary, it felt like waking up in a body that no longer belonged to me. The fluorescent lights above me seemed pale compared to the glory I had just left. My limbs were heavy. My chest ached. My breath trembled between the veil of two worlds. Voices echoed softly in the background nurses. A priest, the faint rhythm of beeping monitors. But all of it felt distant, like sound coming through water. "Sister Helena, she's awake. Call the doctor." That voice, I knew it. Sister Miriam. She had been caring for me during my illness. Her face appeared above me, eyes wide, hands trembling. "You were gone," she whispered, as if afraid to speak it too loud. "Your heart stopped for 10 minutes. The doctor." He gave up, but then you gasped, like someone pulled you back. I wanted to speak, but my voice was buried beneath the weight of everything I had seen. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't confused. I was burning, not with fever, but with a holy fire I couldn't contain. The hours that followed were filled with questions and tests. Words like miraculous, unexplainable, and temporary revival were tossed around by men in white coats. But I knew. I hadn't just been revived, I had been returned. For a reason. Later that night, alone in my room, I stared at the ceiling in silence. The sterile world around me felt too small for the weight in my soul. I remembered his face, his eyes, The sorrow when he showed me those who had chosen absence, the beauty of heaven, the aching mercy in every word he spoke. I knew I couldn't keep this to myself. So when Father Emmanuel came in to pray with me, I stopped him before he could begin. "Father," I said, my voice still faint, "I need to tell you something about where I went and what I saw." He looked at me kindly, but I could see the skepticism in his eyes. That changed quickly. I told him everything from the moment I left my body to the touch of Jesus' hand, to the throne, the waiting souls, the sorrow, the call to speak. I didn't hold back. Not once. I spoke slowly, trembling, yet sure. When I finished, Father Emmanuel was silent for a long time. Then, to my astonishment, tears filled his eyes. "I've been a priest for over 30 years," he whispered. "I've guided the dying, baptized the newborn, buried the faithful. But this, what you shared, it shakes me. Not because I doubt it, but because I had forgotten how real it all is." He knelt beside my bed. "May I confess something to you, sister?" I nodded. "I've grown tired. I've preached sermons that no longer stirred my soul. I've gone through motions. But hearing you, I remember now. This faith, it's not ceremony. It's not tradition alone. It's life. And it's death. And it's eternity. And right there, in that quiet room, I understood that my mission had already begun. News of my recovery spread fast through the convent. At first, the sisters treated me like something fragile, like a miracle that might shatter at any moment. They whispered behind corners, watched me carefully. But that gentle awe turned into something deeper the day I stood up in chapel and spoke. I didn't speak out of rebellion. I spoke out of obedience. I told them what I had seen. I told them how easy it is to serve God with our hands while letting our hearts grow cold. How dangerous it is to wear the habits of holiness without being consumed by its fire. I told them that Jesus doesn't just want our prayers, he wants us. Some cried. Others remained silent, uncertain, but I didn't waver. Then, one night, Sister Agnes, our oldest nun, almost 90, knocked on my door. "I heard your story," she said gently, "and I believe you, because when I was young, I saw something too, a vision, but I buried it. I was afraid people would think I was mad." Her eyes welled with tears. "But now, you've awakened something in me. I want to burn again." And so, in that quiet room, 2 old women knelt and prayed not with memorized words, but with trembling voices and burning hearts. That was just the beginning. Weeks later, I was invited to speak at a youth group in the nearby parish. I hesitated. What could a frail, aging nun possibly say to teenagers scrolling through phones and drowning in distractions? But I remembered what Jesus had told me before he sent me back. "Tell them I'm real, that I'm coming soon, that I love them, but I will not be mocked." So I went. That night, standing in a small parish hall before a group of slouched, bored teenagers, I took a breath, clutched my rosary, and said, "I died, and I stood before Jesus." The room changed instantly. Phones lowered. Eyes lifted. I told them how I drifted from intimacy with God, even while living in a house of prayer, how easy it is to look holy while being asleep inside. I described the throne, the valley, the waiting souls, and the voice that called my name. And when I spoke of hell not as fire, but as the absence of God, some began to cry, not out of fear, out of recognition. At the end, one boy stood maybe 16 tears streaming down his face. "I don't know why," he said, "but I believe you. I want what you have. I want him." That night, 8 young people gave their lives to Jesus, weeping on the chapel floor. That was when I understood. I hadn't just been sent back to remember heaven. I was sent back to rescue hearts from sleep. And the fire that began in that small group, it was about to spread farther than I could have ever imagined. If your heart was moved by this story, we welcome you to be part of our spiritual family, a growing community of people who believe, who hope, and who seek the light. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can continue sharing this message of awakening and divine love with you. Leave a comment below with AMM if you want to receive more blessings in your life. And tell us which city you're watching from so we can include you in our prayers and send you our love from the heart of this mission. You are not forgotten. You are deeply loved. And you are never alone. The weeks that followed the youth gathering unfolded like a rising tide. One voice became 2, then 10, then hundreds. I didn't seek the crowds. I didn't promote myself. But somehow, the fire carried itself. People came drawn not by me, but by the echo of eternity that lived in the words I could no longer keep to myself. I found myself speaking in places I never imagined. Quiet chapels, crowded churches, prison courtyards, even dusty schoolrooms in towns that hadn't hosted a priest in years. They came in doubt, in despair, in disbelief. But they stayed because something in them recognized the truth I carried not, because I was special, but because I had stood in the presence of the one who is, Jesus. And I kept saying his name, again and again, not as a symbol, not as a doctrine, but as a person, real, alive, glorious, near. The resistance also grew. Some clergy warned me to be careful with my language. Some theologians called my experience poetic at best, delusional at worst. But I didn't argue. I just kept telling the story. Because it wasn't mine. It was his. One night, in a village known for its history with the occult, I was asked to speak in a small chapel. A teenage girl had collapsed during the service, screaming with a voice that wasn't hers. People panicked. I didn't. I walked to her side and whispered the name that still makes darkness tremble. Jesus. She convulsed, screamed, and then silence. Peace. She opened her eyes, tears falling. He saved me, she whispered. Moments like that became frequent, not sensational, sacred, deliverance, healing, repentance. I began to realize that I hadn't just come back to remember heaven, I came back to pull others away from the cliff they didn't know they were standing on. But nothing prepared me for what happened next. A letter arrived, not from a parish or youth group, from the Vatican. Bishop Amadune of the Voices that had once criticized Menau requested a private meeting. We need to hear everything, his note said. I fasted. I prayed. I went. They led me through the Vatican halls, past frescoes and saints and echoes of history, into a private library. There, I was shown a journal ancient, leather-bound, filled with testimonies of others who had died and returned. Visionaries, mystics, forgotten names buried by time. Their words mirrored mine. And then, the bishop said something I'll never forget. The church is bleeding, Sister Helena, and perhaps the ones who have touched eternity are the ones who can awaken her. That night, I prayed in my small cell, and once again, I was taken into a vision. I stood before the throne. Jesus looked at Menau with pride or pain, but with urgency. Sound the cry, he said. Tell my bride, I am nearer than they think. And that was the moment I knew. This was no longer about my story. This was a call, a trumpet in the spirit, a final awakening before the return of the king. Since then, I've spoken in 18 countries. I've prayed over addicts, held grieving mothers, wept with broken pastors, whispered hope into suicidal hearts. I've seen demons flee and joy erupt in places that once felt forgotten. Not because I'm anyone, but because he is. I've been called mad. I've been threatened. I've been shunned by those who once embraced me. But I do not fear, because I have seen his eyes. I have felt the fire of heaven in my bones. And I came back to say this. He is real. He is coming. And he wants you. Not your perfection, not your religion. You. If you've wandered, if you've doubted, if you've gone cold, there's still time. Whisper his name. Jesus, I want to know you. And he will come. Because eternity is not far away. It's closer than your next breath. And when that day comes, when the veil tears and the heavens open, it won't matter what title you held, what people thought of you, or what you built. Only one thing will remain. Did you know him? And so I leave you now, not with fear, but with fire. Let it burn in you, as it does in me. Let it wake you up, as it did to me. Because the bridegroom is near, and the time is now. If this story has touched your soul and you feel something awakening inside you, don't let this moment pass. You are not alone. We are walking this journey together, as a family of faith and light. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel to continue receiving messages that elevate your spirit and prepare your heart. And if you feel the presence of God in your life today, comment below to receive a special blessing in our next video. Also, tell us which city you live in so we can include you in our prayer zone by name, with love and devotion. A new video is waiting for you. Just click on the one appearing on your screen right now. It holds a revelation that could transform your life forever. Don't miss it. With all our heart, thank you. Amen.